Welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast with your hosts Bill Algie, Dennis Talbot, and Alan Tate. We are three guys who have one thing in common, a love of rock and roll. Our goal is to talk about all things rock. We hope you find this show intriguing, funny, and occasionally highly opinionated. Enjoy!
Rockin' Pod is back. The annual celebration of rock returns to Nashville. This convention brings together the best rock stars, music podcasters, vinyl and memorabilia vendors, and rock fans from all corners of the globe. Special guests include Michael Sweet of Stryper, Brian Forsyth of Kix, Jason Beeler of Saigon Kick, Eerie Vaughn of Danzig, and members of Exodus, Roxy Blue, Every Mother's Nightmare, Kick Tracy, and more. Music podcasts from all over North America will be recording on-site all weekend. Special pre-party featuring the rock and roll residency, The Talisman, 8-Ball, and Lipstick Generation on Friday night. Rockin' Pod Expo on Saturday. Join us at the Nashville Airport Marriott August 9th and 10th for Rockin' Pod. Podcast registration and tickets and VIP packages available now at rockinpod.com.
Hey, welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast. This is episode 174. I'm here with one of my esteemed co-hosts, Mr. Bill Algie.
What's up?
Alan is not here tonight, but we have one of my best friends from the old days, Mr. Joseph Gwin. How you doing,
Greetings
sir?
all. Thank you all for having me very much.
The
Okay.
old days. How old are old days?
He's older than me. By the way, Dennis's birthday is coming up at the end of next week. I think the 6th or the 5th.
5th, it is.
Yeah, so Dennis will be celebrating another year of living and another year of his wife not smothering him in his sleep for doing something wrong. So
Well, it helps when you sleep in separate places.
That's true, too. I sleep on the
yeah,
couch a
well,
lot.
yeah, she. That's only because he passes out and can't make it up the stairs. But
No, I
that's-
can't. I
that's
snore
something.
too much, and I have a hard time sleeping. Anyway.
I understand.
No, but I have known Joe actually since, as I say, Bill and I have been friends since 1984. Joe and I met in 1970.
71. I wasn't in
71, yeah,
kindergarten.
you weren't in kindergarten, that's right.
Yeah.
So it was first grade. So Joe and I was
Wow.
in school in first grade through, was it fourth? Am I right?
First, third, fourth, and half of fifth. But I was in an adjacent town,
Right.
second grade, and then another school in the same school system.
And then
The remainder of grade school. Then we were back together from 7th grade on through graduation.
7th through graduation, and he lived in Dale, and they actually had cable television. We lived out in the sticks and never had any kind of cable. So Joe's house was a place that me and my other friend, or our friend Matt DeVille, we would go on Friday nights, and usually TBS would have a James Bond movie going, and we would make pizzas and we'd watch cable. And then afterwards,
Absolutely.
there was a thing called Night Flight that was on, and it would play videos, pre-MTV. And so we would watch that at night, watch music videos. But anyway,
Ironically, I
fantastic
think
stuff.
WTBS still does James Bond.
Wow.
like
Not
all the
surprising.
time.
Along with Andy Griffith, yeah.
Ugh.
They made their first profit, I think, on Andy Griffith show.
I think so.
So, anyway, well, guys,
You're
thank
on
you
the
very
same.
much for having me here. And as Dennis said, we've known each other more than a couple of years. And I think this conversation this evening is kind of born out of we'd lost touch for several years. I worked overseas off and on for most of my adult life, living in the United Arab Emirates and also living in Singapore for a while. And at one point, must have been 2000 something, early 2000s, we connected again.
Right.
And pre-Facebook, how we found each other, who the hell knows?
It was an
but
email, actually. Email through
Okay,
email.
okay.
Yeah. Early email.
And yeah, so we basically we started this ritual where a few times a year we get together and
we camp out at our house.
we camp out at Dennis's house, It's gone from his basement in his old house, which you probably remember, on Powell in Evansville, to the garage in Newburgh, and we discussed all the things that matter to us, and that usually comes down to movies and music, and same thing you guys discuss on your podcast, as I've heard it a few times. So I'm glad to be here to take part in an episode. So thank you.
But before we get into all that, though, there is some music stuff we need to get to, some purchases this week, and some news. Real quick on the news, Universal is in a big quagmire right now. In 2008, Universal Studios had a huge fire out there. It was the King Kong exhibit, or that part of the tour caught fire through a maintenance error. But for some reason, they had their storage facility for their recordings in that either same building or an adjacent building that caught fire at that point. Very little or no sprinkler systems or any kind of fire safety systems in that place whatsoever. So this was in 2008. Well, nothing really come out other than, they had this big fire at the back lot of these studios. Well, now some of these stars have went back and started, I know lately with Bryan Adams, he went back and says, I want my original recordings from Reckless. I want to do a reissue, and I want the art and all the tapes. And Universal kept giving them the runaround. And then come to find out, they finally just fessed up and says, it's gone. It was lost in the fire. Then the New York Times did a article on this whole situation, and then found out that it's not just one. I mean, it goes from, they said, Aretha Franklin, Buddy Holly, that type stuff is all gone, all the originals, up to Nirvana. I mean, it's just they have lost all the master tapes. They all got burnt up in that fire. And now there is this major, I know there is a class action suit brewing right now with all these stars and artists that are going to, and I know it's in either 100 million or a couple 100 million starting out, but this is going to be a big quagmire. and it's sad because, like I said, the recordings are still here, but these master tapes, luckily, like with the Bryan Adams situation, he was building a studio at the time, and he had an extra master tape made copy, and he stored it in his studio. Well, he's able to retrieve all that now, unlike other people that didn't do that. But these master tapes, they have the music on them, but they also have alternative tracks that were recorded that weren't actually put out on the albums. And when they do these reissues, they can go back and say, hey, we want I sang it a different way, or I did something else, I'd like to mix something else. Those are all gone. All gone. Of what Universal had at that point. Now, I think this is going to blow up and be a huge clusterfuck. Basically, that's what's going to end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The famous Swedish word, klusterfuck.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's going to be bad. So anyway, that's one of those things. It's going to be interesting as time progresses and we hear more, because like I said, they just shut their mouths and didn't say anything about it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, well, we had some issues, and now, like I said, the more stars that come and check, hey, do you have my stuff? No, it's gone. This is gone. This is gone. This is gone. And, there was some historic shit that was in there that was lost, and it's a sad ordeal.
Yes, I was looking it up. It says that on Friday there was lawsuits filed in United States District Court in Los Angeles,
right,
by 5 prominent musicians and estates: the rock band Soundgarden and Hole,
right,
singer-songwriter Steve Earle, the estate of Tupac Shakur,
and Tom Petty's
former wife, who owns the rights in some of Tom Petty's music.
Right.
It says that the plaintiffs are seeking compensatory damages in an amount in excess of $100 million.
That sounds cheap. I mean, really, to what was lost, that sounds low. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for one thing, they're going to underestimate it because they're the ones that have to pay it. I mean, the litigation on this, they're trying to lowball it now because all of these artists, their lawyers are going to come in there, and the first fight is going to be over the value of what was lost. The second fight is going to be compensation.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting little thing to watch. So, but anyway, as far as other news, you guys got anything else? Bill, you got anything else? I've been busy this week, so everything is kind of past my radar.
No, I don't really have anything. There's not been a lot of stuff going on.
No,
it's just
really
kind of like,
it's been kind of just.
I mean, I've been reading a lot of stuff. I mean, I've been reading stuff online and stuff like that, but there's just not been a lot of,
big
not
news.
been anything big or exciting going on. So
it was the 10-year anniversary of Michael Jackson's passing yesterday.
Yeah, that was yesterday.
You know, I forgot that Farrah Fawcett passed away on the same day, and that just got buried.
There was a third person too. I thought that
was there
took the long ride home. Yeah,
I don't remember.
So it's.
All I know is I was on my way to the Moonlight, getting ready to fill my belly up with barbecue and fish.
Well, there you
we were
go.
on our way over there. I was like, "Going, that was 10 years ago. We went to the Moonlight."
So, yeah, I don't remember. I just remember hearing about it. I don't remember where I was or whatever.
Oh, I probably wouldn't have remembered if it wouldn't been for the Moonlight. So that was the only reason I remembered it.
But ironically, we probably should have planned that interview with Orianthe a little better, and we could have had that be. We could have had that come out like today. Would have been cool. Have that or yesterday, but we kind of goofed that one up, didn't we?
I see where she is back in Nashville.
Yeah,
and she is recording.
Are you stalking her? What are you stalking her? What are you doing?
No, I've been following her on Facebook, and she was at the zoo today.
Stalking her.
She was playing with a giraffe. She was feeding a giraffe or something today, I think.
Yeah, nobody. Ironically, Joe, nobody else has seen those pictures.
And our friend Christopher Williams and Philip Schaus, they took a really quick trip to Norway to play with Accept at at one of the Opry houses, and they're actually going to be back this weekend. Back in Nashville. Also, Ace Frehley is going back on another leg of their tour. It's going to be where the East Coast, I think. Is that where it is?
Oh, I don't know when that starts. I just know that they're going to be in Indianapolis
again.
August 1st or 2nd or whatever.
And it also check out to the Return of the Comet. They are actually going on another little mini tour, few new shows.
Really?
And actually, I saw Todd's post the other day. Actually, it was kind of funny. I'll tell you a story when I play show me our records. But I was texting with Todd Howard the other day, and we were talking back and forth. But anyway, speaking of records, Bill, what you got this week? Anything good? Anything new?
I got nothing, man. I didn't buy anything.
I thought you bought something.
I don't think so.
I thought you did. Well, I hit the freaking mother load.
It's been a couple weeks for me.
Yeah. Well, I first went last.
I don't have a plethora of places to go. It's like.
But you're close to Indy
down here. Well, I know, but it's not close. I mean, it's like true. A 40-minute drive, so it's not like I'm.
Well, you know what? Going from Newburgh to Evansville
is 5 minutes, dude. It's not that far.
Running to Evansville is not that easy anymore. It sucks. I hate Evansville.
But from your house to Book Broker or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's
15 minutes.
15,
it's not
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not 40 minutes and all that crap.
So I got tired of my place. I've been burning it out quite a bit here in Newburgh. So I went to actually Diamond Lane's flea market, which I don't want anybody to really have to ever go there because it's a nasty pit. A lot of homeless people outside, and it smells.
Is that over there on
Diamond Lanes? On
where the bowling alley is?
Yeah, it's right.
Oh,
right next to the bowling alley. It's that little metal building right there.
Yeah,
it smells of piss and rainwater and some kind of foreign animal death. It's terrible.
Good Lord.
So anyway, I went in there. There was a booth that the guy had, and I walked in there, and I'm like, oh my God, he had all these really nice records. And I walked up there, and it was like $10, $20, $30, somewhere $50. And I looked at them, I'm like, they're scratched and fucked up. I mean, they were new. Here's another thing. When you have a booth, no matter what your record is, if it's not in good shape, it's not worth $1. So don't be putting $10 on a scratched up record, and with no sleeve. It looks like you took a wire brush to it. Just because it's a Kiss record, it's not worth $20.
I have the same thing here. I mean, we do so on Facebook. You can do that. They have a garage sale thing, and
right.
There's a guy here in town that all the time you see he's posted something. It's like Rock and Roll Over. Right. That's $20.
Yeah.
Nobody's paying $20 for Rock and Roll Over.
Oh no, you're shitting me! $20?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they're not. I'd pay
$19.99, but I mean not $20.
Well, for a used copy. That's the whole point. Yeah, the used copy.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to have an original copy, but I have no idea where the hell that went.
I have 3 original copies. The last one I got was almost brand new. It cost me $4.
So the guy did have he had these 2 for $5 bins over there. He was looking like he needed some money. He was looking like he was getting jittery and needed a fix of some sort. So I did spend $4. I spent $10 there. I got Alan Parsons Project.
Like, what is wrong?
Alan Parsons Project. I got iRobot.
Take your right hand and not quite cover up the album cover so much. Just kind of grab those.
Yeah,
there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, so nice. Got that, and that's a decent album. That was $250 basically. Get the Knack. I've been wanting that for a long time.
I've seen that. I see that.
I know.
Everywhere.
I know, but
how much you pay for that?
$2.50. It was 2 for $5. So that's why I bought it, and it's a good shape.
Yeah.
And we'll get into this later with Joe, but I got REO Speedwagon's 9 Lives, and it's an okay, but it was $250. And like I said, it's got actually what it's got on here, Back on the Road Again, which is a good song.
What was the hit off of that album?
Back on the Road Again. Yeah.
Back on the road again.
REO Speedwagon. I got High Infidelity, which is that's the big one. That's Don't Let Them Go, Keep On Loving You, In Your Letter, Take It on the Run, Tough Guys. Oh my God, that's the big one. So
a song called Tough Guys with REO Speedwagon is like the biggest misnomer ever.
It's kind of funny because we saw them in Indy, and they opened the show with "In Your Letter," which was kind of weird.
That is a weird opener.
Like
really?
Kind of strange. At least I think that's what it was.
So I hadn't been to the Book Broker in years. I mean, it's been since I lived in Evansville. So I've lived in Newburgh now for almost 11 years now. So I went by there, and I knew that they had this is one of those things where I'm going to probably spend 2 hours there because they just got a ton. I got one bin that's got 84 Herb Alpert records in it. They're all $1 a piece and stuff. I was like, oh man, this is. So I get over there and I ask him. I said, well, you still got records? Because I couldn't find them. And he goes, oh, they're all upstairs. And I said, okay. He goes, yeah, we got a lot of them. He said, but all the good stuff is in these 3 bins right here. And I'm like, okay, great. You just helped me from having to look.
Oh, absolutely.
I go, well, what's upstairs? He goes, all the stuff that we had at the old store. And I said, well, I probably looked at every one of them already. So he said, no, this stuff here we've already went through. There's no scratches. They have all the things with them. They're the best of the best. And I'm like, okay, I wonder how much these are. Well, so keeping with the REO Speedwagon, I got the Decade of Rock and Roll twin album, which has every hit on it. It is basically like brand new, $7. Yes, I was very happy with that. Then I got Sammy Hagar's 3-lock box, like brand new, $6. I mean, that's
$6.
$6.
That's a new currency. $6.
I got a bit on that. Steely Dan Gold, which it's got some great hits on it. $5, but it looks like brand new.
The prices are coming down.
Boston, man, don't look back. Really, really, really good shape. $5, and I'm telling you what, this thing here. I mean,
should have got 4.
But they have all the original inserts, and they're not water damaged, and the corners aren't beat up and all that bullshit. Got Billy Squier, Don't Say No for $5. Another one of these albums that are just, Actually, I listened to it yesterday. The first side is great. Second side, he blew his shit off.
That's why there was a B side.
Now, all of these albums you bought. Now, is this the guy that was getting antsy to sell something, or was this? From the flea market. What did you get?
This is a Book Broker. This is Book Broker. The first.
No, I know, but
what's that?
You were saying that you went to the flea market down there on the south side, and you didn't find anything there? Or?
No, I got the first 4 albums. That's where I got from him. That's
okay. Okay, all right. Sorry.
So the rest of them I got at Book Broker, and they're all in good shape. And I got Night Ranger, Dawn Patrol for $4, and like I said, it's in brand new shape. Love it. The most I spent was $10. ACDC's, for those about the rock. I've never had this out. I mean, look at that.
It's a good record.
And it is a good album.
But you know what? Yeah. It's a cutout. It's actually got the corner cut on it.
Really?
Yes. I found that really kind of weird. So for the guy who won't spend $20 on a rock and roll over, I spent $20 on a rock and roll over, but this is brand new. These are the 2 new albums that I bought off of Amazon. But the cool thing about this, look at this, comes with the sticker.
So does mine.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, but this is my second favorite Kiss album, and I was like going, you know what, I'm gonna buy it. But it's on the 180 gram, and it was the first new edition since '85. But anyway.
The first new edition.
The first new pressing since that. And then it came yesterday. I finally got the 180 gram of the Hotel California. Oh. I carried that around, 3 times up in Indianapolis.
Yeah, you did.
But I bought it today, and I love this album. So anyway, that was my 2 new purchases this week.
Well, my purchases are not quite in the last week, but because I'm a little more discerning on what I spend on albums. The last 2 albums I bought, and I'm going to plug these places because
sure.
For anybody that ever goes there, I think that the people would really enjoy going there. The second most recent album I bought was at Garner Records in the Cooper Young neighborhood in Midtown Memphis, and it's a record shop. It's a neat section of town, but the record shop has a fantastic collection. None of them are for. There's a few of them for $3 or $4. My purchase there was actually $5, and I was over the moon. It was War, The World is a Ghetto, right. Which it's got the long version of the title cut on there. And the most recent purchase that I made was actually at my hometown of Terre Haute, Indiana, the famous Headstone Friends. I bought the newly released Marvin Gaye album.
Oh, cool.
You're the Man. And it was an album that was supposed to be issued between What's Going On and Let's Get It On. According to various things that you read, credibility-wise or whatever, Berry Gordy essentially talked Marvin Gaye into not releasing it at that time because it was 1972. It was very political, more political than What's Going On. And I don't know if Hoover and Tricky Dick were putting the pressure on Berry Gordy, but essentially that album was suppressed. Now, there were songs that were released in various collections through the years. Right. But it's a fantastic album. It's a double album, really enjoyable. I recommend anybody going to the forum you all are using of YouTube and listen to some of the cuts. It's really worth the money. So,
was that a National Record Store Day record?
I don't know what that means.
Didn't have a sticker. Well, so every year in usually May or April,
I think, or May or April.
I think it's April, actually, late April. It is April 12th. Mm-hmm. It was April 12th this year, or 13th. They have National Record Store Day. So they put out certain records that are either reissues or new recordings, like what you were talking about, that they issue, and they only issue them on that day, and they only issue so many across the country. And when they're gone, they're gone. And there's a couple of things like I bought a Eric Clapton box set of albums a couple years ago that I paid $50 for, but it's every big Eric Clapton song in one set, which that's a National Record Day thing. And then they're not making those anymore. So if you don't have one of that set, then it's kind of a collector's thing. But
no, I just looked up the release. It was a release date of March 29th of this year.
Oh, okay.
Recorded in 1972. And like I said, it's as we'll get into in a few minutes. I even though Dennis and I same grade, same year, all of this stuff like this. When I hit the 1980s, and I was already I kept waiting on something to appeal to me. And with few exceptions, nothing really ever did, especially the rock music. And for that matter, the soul music, because I have a rather healthy and large collection of blues and soul. And most of the rock music that I truly love is a lot of blues-based rock, such as the Allman Brothers. So
Joe, where did that come from? Is that because of, at that age, your age at that time, was that because of that's what your parents listened to a lot, or what drove you to that? What
I
made
can't
you...
really say that because I think the people that I was around when my father was around when I was younger, and I grew up with my dad, they listened to a lot of country music, which some country artists to this day, I absolutely love, and most I don't. And it's nothing against the genre. It's just that, I prefer, the outlaw movement and Johnny Cash and, people of that nature. But it was just a music. I remember when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I have a half sister, my sister Angela. Her aunt Dink, and Aunt Rosemary is her name, but she's always gone by the name Dink. Was truly into soul music when I was young. And so she turned me on to Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, and then eventually Teddy Pendergrass and Earth, Wind and Fire, Parliament Funkadelic, groups like this. And same way with Marvin Gaye and so forth. I just, and then as I got older, getting more and more into blues and so forth, and jazz, it resonated with me more. Everybody, it's like, we can all see a woman on the street, and maybe 6 of us think she's beautiful, and 4 of us disagree. And so I was probably amongst those 4 that disagreed about 80s music being wonderful. There are some groups that I truly hate, REO Shitwagon being one of them. Fucking
That's
hell!
fair.
I cannot believe that Dennis bought 4 albums. Those are bargain bin albums, especially High Infidelity, which
But Joe,
the infidelity with that album, by the way, is the fact that you're cheating on good music by listening to that fucker.
Yeah, but you know what though, Joe? And, we've had this conversation many times. The thing is that we actually like more music. We actually agree on more music than we disagree on. I know you had this,
and I agree.
And we've talked about this just recently. And actually, I think the last time you were down, we were talking about REO, and you're not a big Styx fan and an REO fan, and all those big
Supertramp, Air Supply. Of course, Air Supply is not rock, but right. I mean, and let me make this caveat too. I love Rush instrumentals. Right. I can't stand Geddy Lee's voice.
Right.
It's like 1,000 goats being culled at one time, I mean, it's just, such fantastic musicians that they are, and it's just like, man, it's like getting the most wonderful bowl of Cheerios out and someone pissing in it and saying, bon appetit.
But the thing is though, go ahead, Bill.
It's kind of interesting to say that about Rush, because I like some Rush stuff, but I could not go to a show and sit for 3 hours and listen to that. It would drive me crazy. I mean, it would.
Yeah, of course you would.
I have a buddy of mine that has gone a bunch of times, and I like some of it, and I like the single. I mean, I like it. I can listen to like Spirit of the Radio. I love that record.
You like the radio stuff, but you can't. But you don't like the radio stuff.
Yeah, but to sit and sit through 3 hours, I would want to probably. It wouldn't be Dave Matthews, but it would be. Yeah. It wouldn't be. It would be definitely up from Dave Matthews, but I just couldn't do it. I mean, I just don't think I could, and I appreciate it. I do. Right. I mean, I understand it and I get it and I get why people like it. It's just not my thing.
Well, and the whole point is, if you have anybody that tells you that they like a band and they like everything they do, they're fucking lying. And that's one thing. And that's one thing that we've talked about. We were talking about this last time we were down. We were talking about Styx, and you mentioned Mr. Ribato. You know what? I think that was a fucking horrible album too. But that being said, and Bill's the biggest Kiss fan ever. But you throw Elder at him, and he's just gonna, and so it is. I mean, you can't. Every band's had a stinker, and there's certain things that you don't like. But getting back to REO, what we're talking about is the fact of that, and we've had this conversation. Those songs, no matter good or bad, they bring up a memory of my teen. That was the soundtrack of my teen years. So when I hear that song, it's not that I hear that song. I hear it's a time machine. It takes me back to a time that I remember being young and skinny and young, Not an old fat dude.
It's the emotion that
it
is the emotion that is
exactly
brought up and
right.
and
but I mean, being from the exact same era, I heard those songs too, and I hated them at the time.
Right.
And the thing that I guess and I got a question for both you guys. I've asked Dennis this before, but I like to ask people this question when we get into music discussions because we all and Dennis has brought up this point, and Dennis is the most, and I say this with extreme fondness, he's the most nostalgic guy I know. He remembers everything.
Yes.
He remembers things that I can't. Well, no, not even that. It's just that I mean details about things. It's like, oh no shit, and he's like, Joe, I remember when you did this. It's like, no kidding, and luckily most of them haven't been one of those things like, God, I'm gonna hide myself away for 6 months because people actually was like that. But so Bill, I have this question for you, and then Dennis, please jump in again. What year were you born?
66.
Okay, so you're born a year after us. All right, so in your lifetime, from 66 until now, choose a continuous 10-year period. It does not have to be a decade starting at the 0 year. Choose a continuous 10-year period in which if you only had that music to listen to for the rest of your life, that would be the 10 years that you're stuck with.
10 years. I would say that would probably be 74 to 84.
That was almost exactly what I said.
Probably in that ballpark, and because of, and I can tell you why.
The second part, please. Yeah, please do. That's the second part. Please tell me why. I know I'm interviewing you guys, but I mean, this is. I think that your listeners. This is one of those things that I think gives a real insight into people, and what brings about the nostalgia Dennis was talking about in high school.
Yeah. So my mom, constantly. I remember when I was growing up, my mom always had music on. So when my mom and dad got divorced, I was 6. So that would have been 1972. So 72, 73, right in that ballpark. And so I remember my mom had records on all the time, and it was Helen Reddy, it was Seals and Crofts, it was Mac Davis, it was oh gosh, I can't think about it. I mean, I have them. Bread. I mean, it was that kind of stuff. So
sure.
That whole period, well, and then when when the 80s came along and I became a teenager in the 80s, it was definitely that to me was just. And then I got into Kiss in 1977, 76, in that ballpark, and so it was but it was always there was always music going on of some type, whether it was it wasn't a lot of country. I mean, my mom never. I mean, the Mac Davis thing was kind of weird. She ended up with that because that's not Billy Joe Thomas. That was the other. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's right.
BJ Thomas.
BJ Thomas. There you go. Yeah. Well, I think his name was Billy Joe, but yeah. But that kind of stuff. So, but it was never. There really wasn't like. She didn't listen to a lot of the older country like that. So it was kind of strange. But that's the reason why. I mean, it was just that's the stuff that. We talked about it the other day. I got an email the other day that there was a concert going on, and it was Firefall, Ambrosia, Little River Band, and Don Felder was the headliner.
Fuck yeah!
And I'm like, damn.
I'd go see Don Felder. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I'm like, okay, I'll go. I know half those guys are dead, but the people that are left, that would be a really good. The music would be really good.
Right.
I mean, I think it could be really good to see that show. But it's in California and I live in Indiana, so that's not going to work. But I think it. But again, I think it. To what we were discussing, I think that music, is a reflection of emotion, and the connection that I have, at least with music, is about emotion, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. Right. I like Styx. I didn't really like Styx after the Mr. Roboto thing. I didn't, I don't care for Styx today. To me, Styx is Dennis DeYoung in that era. But I can tell you specific things about Styx because it brings back memories of going to the show and that kind of stuff. So there are those things that, whether I like the band or not. I mean, another great example is I remember I was probably 12 or 13, and had to go with my sister to see Sean Cassidy. Right. Because that was what we did. And she fell asleep in the first song. And I was so mad. Here I am wearing a Kiss t-shirt to see Sean Cassidy. and just
representing.
I don't want any of my friends to see me. Yeah. I don't want any of my friends to see me. But the opening band was Virgin. They were really good, by the way.
Of course.
But so I sit here all these years later and tell you that I remember going to that show, and I remember exactly what happened. And there was a thing that connected our family to that. So my mom, we didn't have a lot of money, and my mom, that was something my sister really wanted to do, and she scraped around and found the money, and we went to see him at Robert Stadium. And
it's fantastic.
Now looking back on it, it was like, that's the stuff I've done that for our kids. I mean, I just paid a few bucks to send, my boys and one of their girlfriends and my wife to see Thomas Rhett last week in Indianapolis. I'm not a big country fan. I like his music. It's okay, but it meant way more to them to go. And we got great seats right behind the soundboard, and they had a blast.
Right.
And they won't forget that.
Oh, it's fantastic.
So that's, that.
Oh, exactly.
That for me is what music's about. Whether it's blues, and if you looked at my CD collection, or if you looked at my collection on on iTunes, you would go, yeah, that's a weird dude. He's got all kinds of.
He's all over the fucking place.
But Joe,
but the eclectic is what makes our passion for music wonderful.
Yeah,
having such a diverse. Dennis, he's always playing a lot of different tunes of groups. Like, who in the hell found these guys?
Right.
And he has this innate ability to find these people. It's like, wow, that's really fantastic. But I appreciate you starting to share that. But I want to give Dennis a chance here to, if you're going to use the same years, I want you to give your passionate plea for that decade.
And it was the same way, and it starts with, because basically 74 was Kiss. But also with, I have this thing about Yacht Rock, and last time you were like about 3 weeks ago. You and I 2 weeks ago. You and I sit out in the garage, and I just kind of had the Yacht Rock by list going.
Oh yeah.
And we were like, 90% of those songs, you were like going, "That's a cool song. That's a cool song." And the reason that I really think that my dad, he was never into. I mean, he's not a music person. So when you bought a car, he got an AM radio. I mean, we didn't get FM. We didn't. My uncle had an FM radio. We didn't have an FM radio until I think that Buick Century we had when I was in high school. The car I learned to drive on. We had AM radio for years. So we listened to WTCJ 1280, and that's the music that I listened to as a kid all the time. And I didn't have a stereo. We had those little transistor radios. You listen.
Oh yeah.
And you listened to the AM station that was close, and that was the kind of music that was. So those songs, when I hear those songs, it brings back. I can almost. It's like I said, music is the closest thing to a time machine you're ever going to have, because there's songs that come on that as soon as it comes on, my brain goes into that. I can smell. I can smell things. I can.
Well, exactly.
It takes me back to. I mean, I am just transported back to a complete different time. And for those 3 minutes, I just relived a moment from my childhood. And that to me, that's what I like about that kind of music. I've always it's a very emotional, personal, and like I said, and this is one of the things I like about music. No matter what you say, or no matter what Bill says, or what Bill likes, or what you like, everything music-wise is based on an opinion. There's no right or wrong about anything. I mean,
I take some exception to that, because
there's some shitty music. Now, don't get me wrong.
Well, no, I'm just saying there's
some guy that would love a shitty song, and he has his reasons. So I can't.
But because that motherfucker's tone deaf and will listen to a cow pissing on a flat rock.
Exactly.
I mean, there are some people that just, I mean, their musical taste sucks. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's.
But you know what I mean, though. Yeah. On a basic, like I said, you can say all you want about Styx and REO Speedwagon.
Well, but I've also used that caveat with Styx that you know, I actually don't mind some of the Tommy Shaw stuff. I just can't stand Dennis DeYoung. I mean, when it comes to high pitched, that high tenor voice. I mean, I would say that probably John Anderson from Yes is about as far as I can, kind of like delve into that. And I can take him for a while. Then it's like, okay, I'm done.
You're muted.
Yeah, Dennis. You muted yourself.
Sorry, I was coughing. No, but the whole point is, you talk about REO Shitwagon. Kevin Cronin's checkbook has a lot more zeros.
I don't begrudge people for making money.
And the thing was that they made good. I mean, and they made music that made memories, and that was the whole point about it.
Well, and not all those memories are good because there's people like me out there.
Oh yeah,
that just cringe every time I hear them. And again, I don't give a shit how much people. I mean, as I always tell people about money, I worry about the money in my pocket, and everybody else I don't give a damn.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm very happy for other people's success, even people where I can't stand their talent. And there is obviously a level of talent there.
Right.
I never say, oh, I wish they'd have never made money. I'm not. That's silly. I mean, God bless them for having the nerve to go and play that shit.
But there's if that's the case, there's a lot of bands from the '80s that from the
Oh yeah.
Well, actually, the '90s music when grunge came along, I just turned that shit off. I mean, I went straight up country. I just quit listening. I didn't listen to Nirvana. Never bought another one, and yeah. Moved over.
I didn't mind some of that.
See that you made that comment last time you were here, and I about fucking fell on my chair. I'm like going, God damn, really? I don't agree with that.
The thing is, because as we said, as I said at the time, I always have caveats to everything like that, and then with grunge, it's Pearl Jam because Eddie Vedder sounds he's got a mouthful of marbles covered, shit covered marbles. But at the same time, you got some asshole like what's his face from Soundgarden. Those guys actually had talent, even if it was like dark ass music. And Nirvana, if there's no denying the talent and the decency of the music that they put out in their 2 albums or whatever the hell it was.
Right.
And thank God we got Dave Grohl out of that. I mean, that's I'm very thankful for that.
No doubt.
And Joe likes the Foo Fighters, so you know what? He redeemed himself on everything he's always said.
And so one of the things that Dennis and I and let's kind of get away from some of the schlock rock of the '80s and get more towards music that I don't really like, but I can appreciate, and that's the hair bands from the '80s. It's Rat Poison or whatever the hell their name was, and all that shit like that. I mean, Guns N' Roses obviously had more talent than some of those guys.
And I can't stand.
Yeah. Well, they're with great reason.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons not to like them.
But the thing is, though, it's one of those things. It's still another one of those issues where, when the hair bands came in, that was still a time when we were still young and dumb and not married yet, and it represents another era in my, after high school. That was my college years.
It does. Well, and it's true, Dennis. I mean, we've had this discussion to where every. Right. When you talk about the sensory, the memory of the sensory. Whatever the hell it is, when something evokes a smell or a taste or some sort of brain.
Now, was it all good? No, I'll agree with you right there. There was a lot of stuff, but there was some pretty good stuff that came out of the '80s hair bands.
Well,
at first,
there's a lot more talent in there than like I said, I hate to lump some of it because there is a lot more talent in there than I'm willing, that maybe in general I'm willing to always discuss. But I'm glad most of these assholes have actually outlived their lifestyle.
Yeah.
Which is the same thing for actually the '70s guys, and the hard heroin those guys did and so forth, probably a little bit more, that's why the 27 Club was so prominent in the late 60s and 70s more than the 80s.
Right.
But, what, and Bill, you'd asked us earlier about, some of the things that I loved about the 70s music. Well, it was kind of hard to explain at the time. It's only when you get older and you start putting together, as we all have, we start tracing back where their influences were and so forth that, that I understood why some Led Zeppelin songs I absolutely loved. Whereas if I never hear Stairway to Heaven again, it's never too soon. Whereas, at the same time, I spend a lot of time in the Mississippi Delta. And I've hit lots of stops on the Mississippi Blues Trail, and every time I go down there, I go to Rosedale. And if you know the Led Zeppelin remake of the Robert Johnson song "Traveling Riverside Blues," there's a lyric in there where Robert Plant sing, "Going to Rosedale with my writer by my side." Now, I have to look up what the hell's a writer. I knew it had to be some woman-related thing. Well, it's a sugar mom. These musicians, well, not that it's changed any, but these musicians always had a sugar mama in any town they went to and stayed. I mean, one of my favorite old jokes that you guys know as well is that, what do you call a musician without a girlfriend?
Right.
Homeless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to say bass player.
Bass player, yeah, usually bass player.
Well, there you go. There's that too. But and so I spend this time. I've been going to the Mississippi Delta off and on for the last 9 years. When I've come back from overseas and so forth, and I had a connection down there for a while, and I still have friends down there that I go down and see once or twice a year, and. So a year ago, this last February, I did what I called the Sell Your Soul Tour. And this is something to where there are 3 sites in the Mississippi Delta where Robert Johnson supposedly sold his soul, the so-called crossroads. Mm-hmm. Now, the one that claims it the most, and it's probably the least likely, but they put up a sign. So if you put up a sign, it's true. I posted some shit on Facebook. Is Clarksdale, which Clarksdale is a neat little musical town. It's got the Delta Blues Museum, which I've visited several times, and Morgan Freeman, the actor, his Ground Zero Blues Club, which is a building that
I heard it's just like a shack, isn't it?
Well, it looks like a shack, and I swear, Dennis, that if either one of us leaned against the damn thing, it could be in trouble.
Okay.
But
just explode.
Yeah, but so this 3 spots where Robert Johnson supposedly sold his soul. First being Clarksdale, the second one being Dockery Plantation, which Dockery Plantation is kind of a famous place because their blues marker. Is a question, birthplace of the blues, ? And there were several famous, it was a sharecropper plantation, and several blues artists in the 1930s and 40s lived at Dockery Farms. Okay. And a few people that passed through there, including like Howlin' Wolf and so forth, and a few other people. Pop Staples, the father of the Staple Girls, i.e. the Staple Singers. And then the third place is actually in Rosedale, the same song mentioned before, at the intersection of Highway 1 and 8. And I would say that's probably the best legitimate candidate, for the legend, even though none of it's true. But it's still, it's still fun to have done that. But when I was making my triangle tour of those 3 stops, I also made a little side trip and went to Conway Twitty's hometown. And had to, of course, get a picture with the sign there. So
that's funny.
So it's so we all, my love of rock music from the 70s started this kind of a journey.
Right.
Because you listen to Led Zeppelin, you listen to Moby Grape, you listen to Steve Miller, his early stuff from the 60s and so forth, and you wonder, damn, well, early Fleetwood Mac.
Right.
Fantastic stuff. Adam Hartmother and albums like this. So I mean, that's kind of what started me on that, and to tie it back to the '80s music and my opinion of this, I find '80s music to be soulless, and I don't mean just from a standpoint of musical, like soul music. It's like people started getting tired of what was going on in the 1970s. They'd kind of done the blues rock scene and so forth, and they just didn't really know where in the hell to go next. Therefore, you had punk come, the angriness of punk, the shittiness of some of these groups that we discussed before, to where while they may be musicians of a certain level of skill, there's no real heart and soul to the music where you can just hook onto it and say, oh my God, these guys were really inspired. Now these assholes were at one time, like all musicians, started in a cover band and didn't get much better. Maybe musically, but but song-wise, I'm not sure they got any better.
Right.
And ultimately, I think that for what you guys are saying about grunge, I can't disagree with you in the sense that it's some kind of wonky, weird stuff. But it was what it represented to me was, okay, we're tired of all this shit we've seen for the last decade, kind of what happened in 76 and 77. Mm. But I think that what they did resonated more with a newer generation than what, I don't think anybody went into the late 70s and early 80s going, oh my God, these bands are outstanding.
Right.
Now, again, I think the late 80s, with the hair bands and the LA music and metal scene, you did. And obviously you had, standard bearers for all decades like AC/DC and so forth. But, so that's kind of the thing with, one of the things I say about the 80s music, because, and I've seen this, I think that most, not most, I have heard too frequently in my life people disparage blues and soul music as being not real rock and roll, when in fact it's the original rock and roll. Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah.
It's these bands that came from England and brought us back blues music, they really brought real rock and roll to the United States, because while there might be some fun, cool music in the early 60s, not much, but some, after the late 50s of Chuck Berry and Elvis before he left Sun and Jerry Lee Lewis and so forth, it's a lot of shit like, how much is that doggy in the window? It's really fucking terrible stuff.
Exactly.
And so that's kind of where I go with that.
Right. The one thing though is good though is the fact of that when you do come down, I play you my stuff, you play me your stuff, and we've actually introduced each other to different stuff that we hadn't heard before. And that's what music's all about, as far as showing your buddies and your friends, here, try this out. Like you said, I hear stuff that I've never heard before, and saying, vice versa. Bill, what was you going to say? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
Yeah, Joe, I think you make a very valid point. I think when you look back and you think about the 80s stuff, I'm a fan of the 80s music, and I'm a fan of the hair metal stuff, but you're right. I mean, it was to the point where it was just, they were just pumping something out all the time. And it all started to sound the same. It all started to be, there was no originality to it. Right. It was, okay, if I put on makeup and big hair and I can wear spandex and I can make 3 chords, then I can probably be a band.
Cookie cutter.
It became very cookie cutter. And ironically, that's exactly, in my opinion, that's what's happening with music today.
I agree.
The 80s music became, at some point in the late 80s, it became disposable. It became, it didn't matter whether, for example, Dokken is a band that I really like. Dokken was never going to be big, really, really, really big, because there were 45 other Dokken bands out there.
Right. Exactly.
They were all the same. Now, you had to figure out the ones you liked and didn't like. But if you go through a record bin, any record bin that's got 80s records in it, and you start thumbing through there, you can put them on, and sometimes it's really difficult to figure out exactly who's who. I couldn't tell you the difference. I couldn't tell you the difference between a Dangerous Toys record and a Trickster record.
I'm the same way. Yeah.
They're two bands I know. They're two bands that I know the names. I I know a song of each one of them, but if you put the record on and you said, "Who is that?" There's no way in hell I'd
If you
know.
went to the B side and just grabbed a song, a random song, you would like going.
If you went to the A side and grabbed a song,
yeah.
I don't know that I could tell you who it
Same
was.
Way. Same
so,
way.
To your point,
that's an amazing point you guys are making.
And I think it's and I think that's what's happening today. I think it's happening in all of music today, because music today is so disposable, because you don't have to be a good songwriter. You just have to have somebody that can run the tools and make your voice sound the way it needs to be. You don't even really have to be a good singer.
Right? I was just going to say that. You don't even have to be a good singer.
I mean, you might have to have a good song, right, but you don't even have to be a good singer, because they can make you sound however they need to make you sound, and makes you very disposable.
Which is why when you hear a band like Alabama Shakes and
right, you go,
or whatever her name is, like, wow, she's
exactly,
she's talented. So
exactly. And when you hear people like Taylor Swift, and you go, yeah, that sounds good. What does she sound like live? And the first time you hear her truly live, you go, she's freaking horrible.
Right.
But then on the other side of that flip coin of that, you have an artist like Carrie Underwood that, whether you like Carrie Underwood or not, amazingly talented.
She can sing her ass off.
Sing her butt off.
And I know we're running out of time. But I mean, in country music can be the same way. I mean, I tend to like guys, groups like Zac Brown Band. I think, they got some
he's
talent.
got a lot of different things going on. Chris Stapleton.
Yeah.
Oh, Chris.
Super talented.
Chris Stapleton. See, I'm not a country guy, but we saw him open up for that. But you know what? Florida, Georgia line, I pissed there once. I don't. That was my favorite joke. I've heard that before. It's like, but those guys, those tight pants country guys, there was Kevin.
But why do you like Chris Stapleton? Because Chris Stapleton sounds like the guys back in the 80s,
the outlaw
country guys back in the 80s, the country guys, the outlaw country guys. Yeah. That stuff that's the reason people have really started to grab onto that, because again, we've made that cycle to where that is something that people want to hear.
Yeah.
So I mean, do you think, for both of you guys, do you think that for lack of a better term, do you think we're desperate for something new?
Yeah.
Oh, we are.
I mean, is that? I mean, I find myself with that now, because I can't stand those. I'll never be one of those guys that says, well, back in my day we had this and that. Well, should I listen to 70s music and a lot of that stuff I wouldn't have been allowed to go to the concert. My father, as much as I think back now, it's like, wow, it would have been really cool if my dad would have taken me to see the Mothership Connection tour with Parliament with Parliament. Shit, that was never going to happen with my.
Well, and here's answers your question.
You got it in the building,
right?
Yeah.
Well, and here,
exactly.
This answers your question, Joe. Is the fact of it's not the fact of that we don't think that they always say rock is dead. Rock is not dead. You just can't find it. Finding it is hard. It's there. The problem is anymore. The record companies are fucking shit anymore. And everybody has to go their own route. They have to do their own stuff. So to find these people, it's hard because it's not mainstream. And, radio's not playing the shit. Radio's not going to play the good stuff.
It goes back to my point.
Right.
It's disposable.
Right.
But this is why I love YouTube, because it does give some people a chance to get out there, other than in just their, in their local music venue, whatever it may be. It gives people a chance to be heard.
I've found more music in the last 3 years with this program.
And the podcast, yeah.
With this podcast, meeting people and people sending us stuff, it's been great, because thank God.
So Joe, you make a really good point too there, because there's a band we've had on here from England called Inglourious.
Right.
That they use social media, including YouTube and Instagram and whatever, to have their first real show be a sellout show of 1,500 people in a bar or a small venue, just by putting out a video and getting people to retweet it and whatever and say, come to our show.
Right.
That's use amazing. That. And it's amazing. Yeah. And in Europe, they're really a pretty big band.
Not anymore.
Well, no, they've had some falling. They're like most bands. They've had some falling out, but when we had,
we loved them. I mean, oh my God.
When we had their bass player on the show, the first record was phenomenal.
Oh, it was.
And when we had the bass player on the show, it's like, how did you do this? And he said, we did not do one promo. We did not do one show before we did our first big show of that 1,500.
It was all hype.
And it was all about hype. Yep. It was all hype.
Yep.
And it's just such a different environment. And to your point, if YouTube can get a music channel,
right,
that's a strictly music channel and start pumping that kind of stuff out through there, exactly. I think that's going to make a difference. Because even if you go to Apple Music right now, there's not an Apple Music that says new. There's not a Apple Music radio station that is new rock.
Right.
It's classic rock. It's 70s rock. It's 80s rock. It's hair metal. It's metal this. But there's no new rock, and that's unfortunate because they're like you said, we have had the great opportunity to find some bands that are like really pretty freaking good that are just not going to they're not ever going to go anywhere because there's no place for them to go.
Right. Exactly. By the way, and I just want to make this plug as well. So there's 2 radio stations I listen to here in Indianapolis, and they're both low power radio stations. 100.1, which is really kind of a really cool, very eclectic 60s and 70s station that's broadcast. The guy's got his tower near Butler University, and the other one's actually streamed online. And I recommend this for you guys anytime, because today, just listening to it, from live jazz to some hip hop to some really cool old country to just fantastic rock. And that's 99.1, which is Garfield Park radio station. And I forgot what it is. So you just type in 99.1 Garfield Park, and you'll find their website.
Okay, cool.
And they live stream. It's just
cool.
Part of that desperation thing. I look to be entertained by music, whether it's new or old. And you guys have made wonderful points about the cookie cutter music that we get stuck with. And so it's and I appreciate you all having me on. I know that you when you have Joe Gwin on, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Everybody's on vacation. It's like your normal viewers or viewers, they're gonna the first question they're gonna say is, fucking hell, who's this asshole?
Well, the number one is, Joe, is like I said, you and I have had this conversation for years, and you know what? I can't wait till the next time you're down, and we're going to sit in my garage, and I'm going to have a few beers, and we're going to sit there, and we're going to talk it again, and we're going to talk it again.
The cool part, too, Joe, I don't know if you know this, but I live in Columbus.
Yeah.
Okay, you're the Columbus dude. Okay,
yeah, I'm in it. Where my son goes to the University of Indianapolis, so I'm in Indy. Yeah.
And their radio station.
Yeah, 97.1.
WICR.
Yeah.
Fantastic jazz. Yeah. Their jazz. I don't give a shit about their chamber pot music, the Baroque shit. But I mean, it's.
Yeah. The football games is what I listen to.
Okay. Does he play football there?
Yeah, he does.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, that's great. No, I drive. In fact, I drove by there yesterday, so I know their campus very well, and I get around the city quite well, and so no, it's that's fantastic. Congratulations to him for going to a nice school and playing football there. Too bad they lost in the playoffs last year.
Yep,
I was hoping for a better outcome for them, because I figure between Marion College or Marion University, whatever it's called, on the northeast side, and Indianapolis on the south side, our lower division schools in this city kicking some major ass.
Yeah, and they don't get any media.
Right. Exactly. The Star sure as hell isn't going to give them any.
No, they get none. It's
all right. Before we get out of here, Alan, you got anything you want to add? Oh, wait, he's not here. But anyway,
this is like really having Alan on a show, because he wouldn't.
He would have said something to you, and I was going to say, hey. So anyway, Joe, thank you for coming on. Bill, thank you for being here. As usual. We actually, like I said, we were this week has been crazy. Bill's getting ready to take his son to West Point, and Alan.
Well, congratulations on that. He got an appointment. Yes. He got an appointment to West Point.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, we drop him off. We're leaving Friday, and he gets dropped off on Monday morning at 6 a.m.
That is amazing. Yeah. I am very pleased to hear that your son got an appointment. That is.
Thank you.
I've never been to West Point. I have been to Annapolis, and all of those young men and women that get into those places. I'm thankful for what they will do for us in the future.
Yep.
Yep. But anyway, we will. Bill, you have a safe trip, and we'll have Alan on again next week. And check us out on our.
Don't even try it.
No, we're going to check us out on agesofrock.com. You can also get us on Spotify, because Alan never fucking says that. You can watch us on YouTube and all the other fine outlets that we go on. Until next week, see ya.
Thanks for listening to the Ages of Rock podcast. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and most importantly, tell all your friends. Remember, you're never too old to rock. Until the next episode, peace out, folks.